I know, I didn't want to have to do it either, but
Yeah.
I got to. Good evening. If everybody would make their way to their seats, let's get started. That was meaning you, Mr. Pratt. Thank you all for coming out tonight at 6 o'clock. We'll go ahead and get started with our regular monthly meeting. Tonight, I've asked Eric Musgrove to open us with the invocation and the pledge.
Let's pray. Our God in heaven, we come to you today to thank you for the many wonderful blessings you so richly bestowed upon us. We thank you for this time that we have together as citizens of this great country and this great state and this wonderful county to listen to and help conduct the business that will hopefully better this place. Pray that you be with the commissioners as they make those decisions which will bring honor and glory to your name. Pray that you be with our first responders and those of our military, those who are in harm's way wherever they may be. Pray that you will bring them back safely home to their families. Pray that you be with those kids who have let out for the summer in many cases. Pray that you'll watch over them as they go to their various vacations and springs and whatever else they might be doing, that they may return home safely. Pray that you will be with the president and leaders of our nation, nations around. Pray that as much as possible they will live in peace with one another. Be with those who are suffering in whatever way, those who have lost loved ones, those who are suffering due to natural disasters. Pray to watch over us. Through your Son's name we pray.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, first item on the agenda is approval of minutes from May 15th, 2018, regular scheduled board meeting. Any changes, corrections, anything from anyone?
Move to approve.
Second. Got a motion to approve by Commissioner Richardson, second by Commissioner Sessions. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. All right, moving on to the consent agenda. We're going to pull item 7 for discussion, pulling item 11 and 12 to be heard at a different time, different day, different meeting. Any other items wishing to be pulled for discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like for you to pull item number 14.
Item 14,
And you want me to tell you the reason why?
we can when we get there.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, could you pull item 17?
Item 17. Any other items? All right, hearing none, I need a motion to approve 2 through 6, 8, 9, 10, 13, 15, 16, 18 through 20.
Make a motion. Second then.
Got a motion by Commissioner Sessions, second by Commissioner Hill. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. All right. Item number 7 is approval task order with North Florida Professional Service for the evaluation of the Welborn water system. I had a question raised about it. I pull it, and Ms. Harris, for the public's benefit, I'd like for you to take a second to explain what's going on there.
Okay. The individuals who have been handling the operation, is this thing on?
The light's off.
It's on.
Okay.
Thank you.
The individuals who have been operating the Welborn water treatment facility are on the verge of retirement and apparently don't have any takers to take on that responsibility, which may or may not be a good thing for the county. But I was contacted by the parties, and we've had some conversation. Mr. Babat and I have gone out and met with their board on a couple of occasions, and they've also spoken to another party, a private party that's a for-profit entity that has indicated an interest. We went out there to have some conversation with them, and this actually came after, on at least one occasion, Dr. Jackson and I had a meeting with the potential investor that wanted to do some development in that area, and one of the foremost questions was the availability of utility. We knew that, or I knew, Mr. Pravat knew that they were getting out of operating that thing, and they need someone to take it over. So we've had a couple meetings with them, and we'd like to evaluate the system, see if it's something that we might be interested in. There are a couple of things that have to occur. One is an appraisal of the system. Florida Rural Water Association is supposed to be conducting that. We are members of that, and so is the Wellborn Water System, Inc., or whatever they call that. So that gentleman has already been contacted by them to undertake an appraisal. But I'd like to have an evaluation of the system performed so that we have a good idea overall how sound the system is. In any event, we have been fortunate enough to obtain some fairly significant grants to build utilities around the county. And if this one could become a part of our utility business without much expense, it might be a good fit for us, but I really don't know that, won't know that until we obtain more information. So that's why this item's on the agenda.
Any questions, Mr. Harris?
No, sir.
What's the wishes of the board?
Motion approved.
Got a motion to approve by Commissioner Fleming,
I second it.
a second by Commissioner Sessions. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. All right, moving on to item 14, appointments of Clyde Fleming and Don Allen to the Suwannee County Historical Commission to complete unexpired terms of Brent Helvinston and Shirley Clark. Turn our attention to Mr. Fleming.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to abstain from voting due to it may be a conflict of interest because I'm being appointed to this board. I want to abstain from voting.
All right, sir. Any questions or anything else about this item? Do I have a motion to approve?
Move.
A motion by Commissioner Richardson. Do I have a second?
Second.
A second by Commissioner Hill. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. All opposed, same sign. All right, moving on to item 17. Authorization to add a regular full-time position to administration/public works with experience in MSTU, MSBU assessments, and other administrative tasks. At the time, we turn our attention to Commissioner Richardson.
Just got a couple questions about it. Two things that I saw, or one thing that I saw was missing in this information was the salary range.
Probably going to be $16 an hour.
Okay.
I'm
Second
just going to
thing,
give you an average, but it's going to be in that neighborhood for someone that's experienced in what we need.
okay, and then have we looked at costs of outsourcing anything?
You're not going to outsource that for anywhere near what we would pay an employee to do it.
Because we don't have a lot of going on right now anyway.
Well, you've got a lot going on, and that's part of our problem. I need someone to take ownership of the MSBU side of this thing, but every year we deal with MSTUs.
To use.
And that's been a nightmare. And it's not a nightmare because we've created the nightmare. It's because of the fragmented information that we receive. We have to stop 2 people in our office every year for months to deal with that mess. Now, one of the constitutional officers is going to be procuring some software sometime in the next year or 2
They'd be proposed in this coming budget year.
that may help clean up some of the information that comes to us, but I have to have someone that can take ownership of the MSBUs and the MSTUs and fire and solid waste and a number of other things in that office that, right now, everyone in that office is just loaded up.
Well, that was going to be along the lines of my question. I didn't see the need for the MSBU side because we don't have but 4 or 5, but when you're referring to the MSTU side of it, that's the fire assessment solid waste that comes in every year.
Been dealing with that.
Yeah, and I'm okay, that makes more sense.
Sure.
My question is, the next question has to do with timing.
The MSBU seems to be turned
We've got approximately, what, 4 months
months.
left in this year. Is it something that we just cannot wait until, I mean, I assume that that's what your feelings are, because you're not wanting to wait until the next budget year.
I think we need to go ahead and do it. We've got 5, I think, MSBU's sitting out there now, and at least 3 commissioners have inquired recently
I
about.
think I have 2 more coming.
This is this is a complex issue that it requires a great deal of attention. Every property in these potential assessments has to be identified and put together in an assessment role. It's going to require bond counsel. We are so far from getting to the point where we can tell any of these people that have come to the board asking for their projects to go the next step. We can't even get them started yet. I just had a conversation with Mr. Powell. We had a meeting scheduled to try to talk about the RFP to get the funding lined up so that we can provide that estimate. We're trying to get that done, and there are a lot of steps in this thing that someone has to manage. It isn't just going to happen on its own. And we've tried, honestly, I'll just tell you right now, I don't know, Paula's here, Shannon's here. We have tried to take bits and pieces of this and put another approach together, an alternative approach, and try to handle it. But we just can't do it with everything else that's going on in the office.
So when you advertise for the job, that is going to be a requirement. They have to have experience in the MSTU, MSBU. We're not training them in that, correct?
There's going to be some training, but they're going to have to come with quite a bit of experience.
Well, what I was getting at, if we're hiring them as a need of now,
Yeah, they've got to be
they've got
able
to have some
take it
experience.
and run with it. They're going to have experience. There's going to be a little bit of, I mean, I'm sure that every office is unique in several ways, but ours, they'll have to become familiar pretty quick. I mean, they've got to come in with experience, but they're going to have to become familiar pretty quick with a lot of the ways that we handle things in our office.
Any further questions regarding this item? No. Mr. Richardson, you got any more?
No, sir, I don't think I do.
To have any action from the board?
Mr. Chairman, I'll motion to approve.
I got a motion to approve by Commissioner Fleming.
I second it.
Got a second by Commissioner Sessions. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
All right.
All right. Next item is, well, in 1 minute, our time specific start at 6:15. I've got Supervisor of Election here tonight, Ms. Glenda Williams, with an additional agenda item for request to the board. If you would come forward, we'll go ahead and, you can get it done in a minute, can't you?
I'll say yes, I'm out here. I thank y'all for letting me come in last minute, too. When I was before you asking for the money to purchase the 450, I didn't realize that I was going to have additional add-ons. Those add-ons add up to $18,000 plus dollars. And the elections fund is $145,000, so there's sufficient funds to use to get the equipment, and it's not things that I don't have to have. I must have them before I can go forward, so I can explain in greater detail if you'd like me to.
You gotta have the software to run the whole thing, so
do.
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Funds available.
Got a motion to approve by Commissioner Sessions, second by Commissioner Fleming.
Mr. Chairman, just a technicality, and I think I asked this before, is this a sole source?
Yes, yes.
Any other questions for Ms. Williams?
Two things now, when you vote to declare it a sole source, and then second, move to approve it,
Okay.
okay?
I've already got a motion.
Change my motion.
Change my second.
All right, so just Commissioner Sessions has made I'll just go ahead and, you withdrew your motion and you second.
I make the motion that we accept the sole source And then, of course, need somebody to second that.
Right.
And then I'll make the motion.
Well, let's approve.
Elections,
All right, I got a motion to declare
ES&S.
as a sole source by Commissioner Sessions. Do I have a second?
Second.
Got a second by Commissioner Fleming. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. All right, now, authorization for the purchase. Still have a motion?
I'll make the motion to authorize it.
I got a motion by Commissioner Sessions for authorization of the purchase. Do I have a second? Second by Commissioner Fleming. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. All right, anything else, Ms. Williams?
That's it.
Thank you.
And I'm fine with it the way it is.
I'm so glad.
We had a debate on whether you would be or not.
Yeah.
Mr. Powell, I hope you don't mind. I'm going to jump on to item 22. There's another special hearing. I'm going to run through that one real quick, and then we'll go back to you, in case they have anywhere they want to be, if anybody's here for it. All right. At 6:15 or soon thereafter, the matter can be heard, hold a public hearing to consider adoption of a resolution approving special permit, request number SP 180601, by Michael Troy Johnson to be granted a permit under Section 14-6 Suwannee County Land Development Regulations for intensive ag to construct 4 poultry houses. This time, we'll turn our attention to the county attorney for swearing in of anyone that wishes to testify during this public hearing.
If you anticipate that you'll have any input at all with regard to this item, would you stand to be sworn, please? Just in case. All right, just in case. All right, and we have staff from Mr. Ron Meeks also. Do each of you swear or affirm the testimony you'll give this evening before the board will be the truth so help you God?
I do.
Thank you very much. Remember, when you come up there, if you will state your name and address.
All right, Mr. Meeks.
Mr. Chairman, board members, the application that you have before you tonight is special permit request number SP 18-06-01, Michael Troy Johnson. Special permit request is to construct 4 poultry houses as an intensive ag operation. Subject property is located in an agricultural 1 zoning district. It's located in section 14, township 4 south, range 12 east. Size of the property is a 40-acre parcel. The access for the property will be off of 165th Road. Currently, the property is a vacant pasture field and does not have any existing poultry houses on it. However, there is existing poultry house operations within the generalized area. For the findings portion of the land development regulations, as I previously stated, the ingress and egress will be off 165th Road. There's no off-street parking required for intensive ag, but there are various sites on the property that is available for that. Refuse areas will be provided for on site. Property is located in an agricultural zoning district and is consistent with the existing land use pattern. There are no buffer requirements in the agricultural 1 zoning district. However, there's an existing tree line that exists on the property that provides a natural buffer to the surrounding boundaries. Property will have an entry sign at the property with the name of the farm. Required setbacks for the intensive ag poultry houses are being met. They exceed 300 feet from all of their property lines. Comprehensive plan does allow for intensive ag by special permit. The existing land use pattern is agricultural. No known impacts upon schools, utilities, streets. No impact to the neighborhood. The established land use is agricultural. No known impacts for living conditions, traffic, drainage, nor air or light. No known impact upon property values in the area, and no known negative impacts that would negate development in the future. And we have an increase in production through pilgrims requires the need for construction of additional poultry houses. You do have a resolution for approval that is contained within your packet if the board so chooses to approve the request. At this time, I would enter the staff report and the file and application into the record. And as previously stated, Mr. Johnson is present if the board has any questions of him.
All right, thank you, Mr. Meeks. So we'll take the application and pack it in as composite exhibit number 1.
This time, does the board have any questions for Mr. Meeks? Or Mr. Pravat, for that matter?
Just have need to put in, if we're going to have the buffer there, then in the trees, just put in there as a condition that he maintains that natural buffer.
So you'll need that, if the board so chooses to do that, they'll need that
Yes, sir.
included in the motion.
Right.
Adoption of the resolution.
Mr. Johnson also owns the immediate 40 acres to the immediate south too, so his southern boundary is himself as well.
Okay.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
The buffer, it looks to be, I don't know if this is north-south, it's what the way this map is, or this satellite image is showing. But is this tree line on property line between the properties that he owns?
Yes.
Okay, so I don't, Mr.
Well,
Chairman.
no, the aerial photograph that shows the outline of the property is the 40 acres in question. He owns the 40 acres to the immediate south. I believe you're talking about the tree line to the north.
Yeah, is that the, okay, so it is the north.
Yes.
Somebody else.
Okay,
That is someone else.
So, and you say there's no requirement for buffers in that area?
There's no requirement for buffers in the A1 zoning district.
I just, if it's a natural buffer, I don't see the need to put a requirement on there that he maintain that simply because trees die, trees get blown down, and I don't think he should have to plant bigger ones or the same size ones there.
Yeah.
That is my opinion.
Any other comments or questions about it? All right, at this time, we'll open the floor to public comment. Anyone wishing to speak, if they would, make their way to the podium, state their name and address for the record. If you weren't sworn, you'll have to be sworn. This time, I guess we'll close public hearing, seeing none, or close public comment. No one wishing to speak. All right, this time we'll go back into board discussion. You bring up the buffer. It's not a requirement. Is that something they were just volunteering to leave in there, or was that just brought up?
No, it's just stated for fact. I mean, it's just when we look at the evaluation of the site, it's not that there's a specific buffer required in this district, but there is an existing tree line that borders the property around. It's just natural. So it would provide a natural transition to the adjoining properties. I'm not aware of Mr. Johnson's intention to take down any of those trees, but the property itself is fairly vacant right now.
I got one comment too.
Yes, sir.
I noticed looking at the map, it's got a larger setback on all four sides than some we've seen. Usually it was like 315. The smallest one's 385, but the one to the north and south is 460. So it's got a lot larger setback than what we normally see.
Yeah.
Yeah, the minimum standard would be 300 feet away from the property lines. A lot of the farms that we have coming before us with additional requests, some of them are antiquated farms of which the existing houses do not meet the 300-foot setback, and they're just putting the houses in line with the existing. This would be a new site, so the 300-foot rule would apply, and he exceeds those setbacks on all four sides.
All right. Well, he meets the setbacks by plenty. We've not typically been putting a request on them for the buffer. I appreciate it being there, but I'm fine with it or without it.
Me
So.
too.
Yeah.
All right.
Natural.
Any further discussion on it? If not, I have a, yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve just as is, put it that way.
All right, I got a motion to approve the resolution by Commissioner Richardson.
I second it.
I got a second by Commissioner Sessions. Any further discussion on it? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Passes 5-0. This time, we'll close public hearing.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Johnson, thank you. All right, this time we'll go back to item 21 at 6:15 or soon. There's the matter can be heard. Hold here a presentation of audit for fiscal year ended September 30th, 2017. Richard Powell, CPA.
Right. It's a pleasure delivering the annual audit of Suwannee County for the last fiscal year. Our staff begins performing interim audit procedures in June, and then we do completion procedures after year end. We completed the audit of, and a county audit, again, is an audit of the board and then each of the 5 constitutional officers. And then we prepared the report, which in this version, this is the overall, the county-wide report. It includes all of the constitutional officers within the report. Okay, great, okay. And so your financial staff have reviewed it, and so this is the formal presentation. For county audits, the new continuing requirements keep making the report more lengthy, and frankly, it comes up with smaller numbers. And so I've been, for the county audits, I've been doing a PowerPoint type presentation. So you have that, and so I'll kind of use that as my presentation, and then I'll be pleased to answer any questions, address any concerns of the board. And you can, we have page number references if you want to look at the direct pages. On page 8 to 10 is the audit opinion. It states that we conducted a full financial audit of the county, which include the board and each of the 5 constitutional officers. The audit was conducted in accordance with applicable auditing standards that include financial auditing standards, government auditing standards, and in this year, the state single audit standards due to the volume of your state grants. What is the audit objective? To express an unmodified, clean opinion on the financial statements. The county has this highest level of assurance, which is a good reflection on the quality of financial records and internal control procedures of the board and the constitutional officers. Now I'm on slide 5. The next section on page 11 to 18, management's discussion and analysis. This section contains certain required overview information on the county. Due to the fact that it is derived from the financial statements, in the interest of time, I request that you read this section on your own, and I will go directly to the pertinent financial statements. The county operates under the governmental fund accounting principles, and so under all of its funds, it has basically 3 types of funds. The very important funds in Suwannee County are governmental funds. Then you have enterprise funds, and then the constitutional officers especially have agency funds. So on page 23 is the balance sheet of the governmental funds. Okay, the county maintains 30 governmental funds, which include 9 major funds listed separately on this statement, and 21 non-major funds that are shown separately on pages 87 to 90 and shown as a total on this statement. Now I'm on slide 7. The balance sheet, again, is a snapshot financial view of these funds at the end of the fiscal year, September 30, 2017. Highlights are as follows, which is slide 8. Okay, of the governmental funds, the main fund of the county, almost any county, is the general fund. Total assets at the end of the year were $13,526,280. Total liabilities, $761,970. Fund balances are cash reserves under fund accounting. So the total general fund balances were $12,764,310. You have various categories reflecting restrictions of them. You have a non-spendable portion, and this is generally with prepaid expenses, receivables that are not readily collectible, things like that. $170,810 Restricted, generally by law, $73,880. Committed, usually by an action of the board, $1,829,771. Assigned, usually through the budget process, $2,428,448. Unassigned is a basically unrestricted cash reserve, fully under control of the board, $8,261,401. That totals to the $12.76 million. Okay, when you add the assigned and unassigned, those are basically flexible reserves. They total $10,689,849. So we look at what percent of your general fund expenditures would that cover. And this year, it covers 53%, which is equivalent of 6.4 months. So the general fund here in Suwannee has kind of fluctuated. It was very healthy, it reduced, and so you have it back up to good health because you basically have a half year of expenditures in general fund of fairly unrestricted funds. So now the total governmental funds, total assets, $36,028,525, total liabilities, $2,208,214. Overall, the governmental fund balances are $33,820,311. Again, the assigned, unassigned, $18,240,267. So overall, in all of the governmental funds, the 30, you have about 38.81% of expenditures, and overall in all the funds, which represent 4.6 months of total governmental fund expenditures. So the governmental funds, I would say, are in good health. You have good reserves in these funds at the end of 2017. On page 9 is the is the revenues and expenditure statement for these same funds. The page in the audit is page 24. General fund revenues, $20,864,158. Expenditures and transfers, $20,157,693. So in this year, general fund had an increase in fund balance of $706,465. The excess, the increase in fund balance represented about 3.39% of the revenues. And so what that shows me kind of as an auditor and understanding that is that you're required by law to only budget 95% of your your governmental fund revenues. So in this year, you likely had expenditures within the allocated amounts. The revenue was generally well collected, and so you were, because of the 5% requirement, you were able to increase your fund balance 3.39%, which is commendable. In the prior year, and this also reflects how these fund balances have increased back to good levels, the excess was 7.5%. And so, and then for your overall governmental funds, total revenue $49,777,340, expenditures $46,987,914. Again, excess revenue over expenditures $2,789,426. The net change here is closer to that 5%, 5.6%. In the prior year, you had an increase in fund balance of $3,223,176. So you've had two good years for sure where you have increased reserves, had stable operations, and been able to reestablish and increase reserves in your governmental funds. Okay, slide 10 The proprietary funds, which are enterprise funds, they're utilized for county operations which are intended to fully operate from user charges. Enterprise funds utilize business accounting principles. The county has the following three enterprise funds: solid waste collection and solid waste disposal, and established, I think, in the prior year, a water plant fund. Okay, on page 11, gives some information on these funds. On the balance sheet, statement of net position, which is the equivalent balance sheet for the solid waste collection, total assets $2,749,045, liabilities $743,112. The net position is kind of the net worth of these funds, $2,005,933. The unrestricted portion is approximately equivalent to the unassigned fund balance in a governmental fund, $489,968. In solid waste collection, that represents 29.8% of expenses, so you have good coverage there. Solid waste disposal, assets $3,600,437, liabilities $2,538,436. The net position, again, net worth, is $1,062,001. The greatest portion of that is restricted for the closure, post-closure activities of the landfill. But again, the restricted, unrestricted represent 59% of expenses. The water plant fund is a very small operation. Assets $63,800, liabilities $3,737, net position $60,063. On page 12 is the revenue and expense statement for these funds. Again, the intent is to operate off of user charges so that you don't have to defray these operations with your general revenues. And I kind of look at the solid waste collection and disposal together, and if you see that the solid waste collection had you could call an operating loss of $325,717, but the disposal fund had a gain of $338,631, so the two funds together basically operated even, which is what your objective is, because that's included recording all of the depreciation and closure, post-closure costs. And you can see that, show at the bottom of the cash. So I'd say that solid waste collection and disposal, you had balanced operations in this year. On page 13 is a table that shows your capital assets. This is on page 48 in the big report. The capital assets are your fixed assets. The governmental activities, $127,500,318. Accumulated depreciation, $55,831,779. Net assets, $71,668,539. Business type, the enterprise fund activity assets. The total is $8,373,947. Accumulated depreciation $6,612,656. Net assets $1,761,291. Always look at the percent depreciated, because depreciation is a true cost, but it's not a line item budget issue, and you're not writing a check, you're using up assets. So the governmental activities, the percent depreciated is 43.79%, which I would say has you about average for the counties that I work with. Business type assets are 78.97 depreciated, and so your enterprise assets are older. overall, the accumulated depreciation is at 45.96%. And then if you look at the comparison with the prior year, it's 45.61. So what that tells me is that in this year, you replaced enough capital outlay to keep up with a year of depreciation. So you were about the same at the end of the year than at the beginning of the year. What usually occurs is that your depreciation percent gets higher every year. But in this year, and I'm sure it's all of the paving and the grant-funded activities, you've spent enough on capital outlay to fund the year of depreciation. On page 14 is the debt. Again, it's organized into governmental debt and enterprise debt. In the governmental area, the total long-term liabilities were $32,603,363. But if you look at that, the loans only comprised $4.9 million, or 15%. The rest of the 85% of the liabilities is due to employee benefit costs. So, and this is the case everywhere. And in your governmental funds, your portion of the unfunded deficit of Florida retirement system is $25,016,720. The total FRS liability is $40 billion.
He said that to make us feel good.
Yeah. And purportedly, Florida has one of the better plans, that's what they say. So, okay, on page 15, enterprise debt, you have no loans here. Compensated absence 76,800. The landfill post-closure liability of $2,249,449. The enterprise fund share of FRS is $681,469. Okay, so financially, I would say that you had a successful year. You increased reserves in the governmental funds, and you have them up to a good level now. In the enterprise funds, you were about the same at the end of the year as you were at the beginning of the year. So the next section of the audit is the single audit and compliance section. This is page 92, 93. This is a report regarding our procedures required by government auditing standards. These standards go beyond financial issues and include internal control over financial reporting and compliance with laws, regulations, contracts, related matters. This report contains no findings or question costs relating to these procedures, and again, that covers the Board of County Commissioners and constitutional officers. On page 17 is the report regarding required procedures required by the Florida single audit requirements. These are generally extended compliance procedures over the major state programs in this year, and there's a calculation of how you come up with the major programs. We have a schedule of which programs were tested as the major programs. This report also contains no findings or question costs. Page 18 is the management letter. Management letter is required by Chapter 10550 Rules of the Auditor General and would contain any findings and recommendations that were not included in the previous reports, but items with which we wish to make the board and constitutional officers aware of. In this letter, the prior year finding, there was only one, was corrected during the current year, and there were no reportable findings in the current year for either the Board of County Commissioners, clerk, property appraiser, sheriff, supervisor of elections, or tax collector. So that's very commendable. On page 19 is an independent accountant's report. Rules of the Auditor General require that we perform audit procedures to verify compliance in the following areas: investment of public funds, E911 grant compliance, clerk's court-related budgetary compliance, clerk's compliance with state court performance standards. We performed appropriate procedures and had no findings regarding these matters. So, be pleased to answer any questions or address any issues with the board.
Any questions for Mr. Powell?
Mr. Chairman, I don't have a question, I would just have a comment. You reading all those figures out, I sure wouldn't want your job.
We all have to do something, no.
Anything else?
Yes, sir.
Sounds good to me.
But the short version of it, we had a good year, right?
Yes, sir.
Thanks, sir.
Appreciate
If nothing else,
Thank you.
we appreciate it. And
Yes, sir. And thank you for the early time slot, and we'll see you.
All right, this time we'll go on to our staff report. Item 23, Greg Scott from Parks and Rec, Airport.
That was exciting. So, hope everybody's awake. Always love that time of year. Anyway, yes, make it worse. Just wanted to bring up to date on a few things. Baseball is pretty well wrapped up, except softball, except for All-Stars. We had 399 kids participating this year in the programs, and now it's time for summer and baseball tournaments and softball tournaments and such. This weekend we'll be hosting district tournaments. Be about 20-some odd teams come in this weekend for district tournaments, and I hadn't run the economic impact numbers on that, but it's going to be good. It's not a lot of overnight stays because it's districts, so they'll be traveling back and forth a lot, but they will be eating and spending money, and that's always a good thing. Got swim lessons going on and such. We still got sessions open for sessions 2 and 3. Most of those fill up pretty fast, but we're so have room in some of those for folks who need swimming lessons. With the rain, the grass grows. So we're wide open, cutting grass, along with helping out with the special events. Just got wrapped up with the Blueberry Festival and others, but things our guys are very busy. We've wrapped up most of the grant projects we've been working on recently. We've got the $50,000 at Heritage Park, 2 at $50,000 at Hill Park, 2 $50,000 grants at the Sportsplex, the $500,000 Unique Abilities grant. We wrapped up with that, and now we're planning on the Coliseum grant, Peacock Boat Ramp grant, Heritage Park, $500,000 for the Unique Abilities there, and also the Heritage Trail, which you've approved tonight if you go out to bid. So we got a few more projects coming up. Going to stay busy. Just wanted to mention to y'all about the Unique Abilities grant we did at the Sportsplex. A lot of favorable comments about the turf, and folks are excited about being out there on the turf playing. So that's been a good thing. Airport update. We've almost wrapped up. We just got to do a couple punch items on the apron expansion. We just wrapped up. Still working on different projects that are in the works, the fuel and others. Just to let you know, the pump is down for the fuel. It should be back up and running by the end of the week, probably by Wednesday, or Wednesday or Thursday. But anyway, just to let you know that in case you hear anybody that can't fly out of here. We do that on purpose so they can stay here and spend more money. But anyway, any questions you've got, I'd be glad to answer them for you.
I got one question. The Unique Abilities Grant.
Right.
The one that was awarded to the city. I know that we ran into some issues there with the flooding.
Right.
Is that going to stall that permanently, or are we working through that?
When we originally wrote the grant to purchase the property through Florida Communities Trust, we had designed in that grant several different holding areas to help flooding issues. Because as we move forward and plans have changed and the whole project, we've not addressed any of those pieces. What we're being told by water management now is that you can't build anything in the front part of where the pecan grove is. And we're trying to work through those for variants or whatever to try to do something different. But the plan right now is to pick up the footprint that we had and move it to the back of the property. That property is not in the 100-year floodplain.
Okay.
So we're still moving forward, it's just,
Just slowed it down.
Right.
I was just, when I heard about it, I was concerned that it was going to stop it dead in its tracks.
right, right.
Any other questions?
I've got a question.
Yes, sir.
Greg, I understand that during the regular season, like when rookie ball and all is going, your concessions are between $700 and $1,000 a day. When you have these big tournaments come in, you may not even know the numbers, but do you have an idea of what the concessions are on those days?
It depends on if you, when you have like a small tournament, obviously it's about volume. And I haven't ran the numbers, projections for the coming
Like a
tournament.
20 team like you're
Right.
talking about?
We're probably looking at, a couple $1,000s a day.
So you're about double what you normally would get. in
Right,
concessions.
right, right. A lot of times, because parents will have a delay, they'll leave the fields to go eat at a restaurant, which works for us. I mean, that's,
Yeah, it still works for you.
right.
I was just thinking on site, I figured it was a lot more than you normally would at rookie ball and T-ball.
Right, right. But the numbers have been increasing for concessions this past year, for whatever reason, whether it's volume of kids or whatever, but it's, we like counting nickels.
Yeah, good.
Any other questions?
I don't have anyone else have anything?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the update.
All right. Now we'll move on into general business. Item 24, set date, time, and location for the budget workshops. Turn our attention to Randy Harris.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, we have proposed some dates and times. These, for the most part, mirror what we've done traditionally, a couple of days. We're proposing Wednesday, August the 8th, and Thursday, August the 9th, starting at 9 o'clock in this building.
Is it possible if we move that either a week, either way, forward or back?
Anything's possible. We'd have to check and
I didn't know if she had a calendar.
Now, that next week, we have 2 meetings on those days.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
it's tied up the next week.
The following week, that week before, is it open then, if that works for everyone else?
Monday, SVT, Wednesday. This works for me, Lake City.
What are the dates?
What date's
First and second.
The first and the second.
First and the second?
First week in August.
Yeah.
First day in August.
Well,
If you move it any later, you get tied on
no,
deadlines.
can we,
You can't.
do what?
You can't move it any later. You can be tied on those deadlines.
Well, no, that ain't gonna work. I was needing it cleared from the 1st to the 10th. I'm sorry. Would anybody have any heartburn with that?
On which dates?
The 13th and the 14th?
As long as the 13th doesn't go past 6 o'clock.
Oh, no, it ain't going that way.
Okay, because
Please.
we've got another meeting,
13th of the board?
13th.
On the 13th, it's
13th.
I don't have a problem with that, as long as, as long as it's a normal day,
Yeah, it's,
SVTA meeting.
that's that first day. It shouldn't go from 9 o'clock to maybe 3 or 4. Would, Mr. Ken, is that, or Barry, will that work? Is that gonna be a problem or issue for any of y'all? 13th and 14th? Sorry to spring that on y'all last minute.
Just be a bunch of meetings.
Are y'all all right with that?
Yeah,
I think it'll work.
I appreciate it. That work for everyone?
Fine for me.
They need that in a motion, Jimmy, or we could just have a consensus? All right. If that works for everybody, we'll move on to item 25, discuss possible board action, bid/purchase of front-end loading garbage truck.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, we need a garbage truck. My plan was to just put this in your budget for next year, but we are running into a problem. Those of you who have inquired about the knuckle boom trucks that we were attempting to get, those are about a year out. So we're still working on that issue, and it's because the chassis are all just bought up. They're all committed. Right now, what I would ask is that we go ahead and just, if we can get authorization to do either a request for proposals or a bid, and I need to look at that a little bit closer, because I'd like to entertain leases on this. We've purchased these trucks in the past. It's an absolute nightmare. They have all kinds of problems. I think we'd be better off like we are with our heavier equipment, just leasing these things, turning them back to them, and that way they're always under warranty. We're not having to deal with the problems. But I don't have any idea how long it's going to take to get them. So if we go ahead and advertise, get responses back, then we'll have a better idea. But we do need a front-load garbage truck. This would be funded out of your solid waste budget, your surpluses in there.
So you're just asking for permission to do like we've done in the past, just go out for a bid option on purchase and leasing?
And/or lease.
Yeah.
Preferably lease. That's what I
Yeah, I just,
really think we need.
the way we worded in the bid last time, it was either or though, and then we chose which one we wanted, correct?
Right, that's correct.
Mr. Chairman, I got a question. You said that the knuckle boom trucks have the big hold time. What about the garbage trucks? Do you know if the garbage trucks are going to have hold time too as well?
All I know right now is that there's one company that has 4. When we do the advertisement, we may find that, all of them have long lead times. I don't know yet. But we did inquire, only because I was talking to a company about the knuckle boom trucks. I inquired about garbage trucks. He said, well, we've got 4 right now, but 2 months from now, we don't know what we'll have. Now, we're running into these serious problems. It isn't just us, it's everyone. What I don't want to do is get into October 1 and find that it's going to be a year waiting for a front-load garbage truck. That would really handicap us. That's a very unforgiving business. We don't have an opportunity to be down with those trucks.
No.
Does this mean that we pay for just like the fire trucks, we pay for them when they come in? Therefore, it'd be in another year's budget, or another year. You said it's going to be funded out of solid waste.
Here's what would happen. With solid waste, the board has the ability to do whatever you want to, when you want to.
Mm-hmm.
So if we get responses and
You have availability.
the information, tells us that maybe we need to go ahead and take action on it, the board has the ability to do that. And it'll be close anyway. I mean, it would take us at least 30 days to bid the things, get it back here, so you're going to be a month and a half, 2 months out.
Yeah.
But the knuckle boom trucks are the ones that are being
Knuckle
put
boom
off so
trucks,
far
we
out.
know, are just way out there.
Okay.
In fact, I may try to bring something different back to you. I'm trying, we had narrowed it down to a company. We started talking to them. They wanted us to sign an agreement, and they never could tell us when the trucks were going to be here. They kept moving the date. Then they finally said, well, we're not sure, so then it got to be where it's about a year out, so we haven't done anything on that yet. We're going to have to make a decision. Might have to bring it back to the board.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
how many front-load trucks are you down to now for all the?
Well, we've got
cans we
some
have?
ragged ones that we keep around,
Yeah,
so when one breaks down, we still have an old one that we can jump in and go.
I seen one that looked pretty rough, that's why I was asking.
They're pretty rough,
Yeah.
and they're expensive to repair, very. In fact, I'll just tell you, a lot of times when those things break down, we have to send them out to have them repaired, because all the electronics in there, it's just a mess. It's horrible. Sometimes they keep them for extended periods of time working on them.
I don't have a problem.
I don't have a
with it
problem with
either
you
or,
want
as
to
long as it's
offer up a
worded
motion to
right.
go out. I mean, all we're doing is getting numbers. You're
Yeah.
not making a purchase.
Whatever we receive, it has to come back to the board.
Right.
And then the board has to make the ultimate decision.
That's good for motion.
Got a motion
Second.
Yeah.
from Commissioner Richardson. Who was the second?
Second.
I got a second from Mr. Hill.
Mr. Chairman, this says authorization to bid, but I'd like authorization to advertise a request for proposals as well. And just let us decide, after I've talked to some of these companies, which direction I think we need to go.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I stipulate that in the motion, too.
He amended his motion to include RF.
Yeah, second.
I got a motion to approve by Commissioner Richardson, second by Commissioner Hill. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Moving on to item 26, discuss possible board action, any issues associated with the water or the wastewater plant, I-75 and County Road 136. Mr. Harris, you got anything on that?
Not really. I'm going to we pulled those items off the agenda tonight. I hope to bring those back in the next meeting with contracts, task orders with engineers to go ahead and proceed.
Moving on then to item 27, additional agenda items, we just had a few. We covered number 1 with Ms. Williams when she was here earlier, supervisor of elections, so we'll go on to item number 2, authorization to execute purchase of a plus or minus 30-acre parcel on Gold Kiss Boulevard behind the Coliseum. Budget impacts to be purchased using the board contingency. Mr. Harris, want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Just a small amount. Some of you know that for years we've been dealing with this piece of property. I've trying to get us a decent number probably 5 or 6 years ago on this piece of property. For those commissioners who've had conversations with me about the future of the Coliseum and our ability to expand or otherwise simply that facility become obsolete because there's no place to expand. This piece of property caught our attention a number of years ago because we knew it was about the only place to go. We've leased it, we've mowed it, we've been using it for years. When fair comes, all of you know the traffic is routed around behind the Armory and across this piece of property anyway. But the price has dropped significantly, about almost $3,000 an acre less than what it was 5 years ago when we were dealing with it. So you've had an appraisal done. Your appraisal numbers are good numbers. It's less than the appraised value. And if you want to purchase this piece of property and have it available for future generations and the expansion of the Coliseum and any other uses, government uses, this is your opportunity.
Any questions for Mr. Harris from the board? Any discussion? I'll go ahead and tell you, me and Mr. Harris, we have talked about this a couple times, and we put it on the agenda and worked out the deals and issues. I'm for it. I think we are limited where the Coliseum's at. If that piece of property sells and goes into the wrong hands and is used in a different manner, that's going to handicap a lot of things that go on out there. Can we use that on a regular
Is
basis?
it all usable, or is there any low area there?
It gets wet, but it's
But it's not bad.
It's not
it's
bad.
not bad. It
Yeah,
can-
I remember riding around there looking, but it doesn't look
We
bad.
currently, every year we
Yeah.
use it for parking.
Yeah.
But that's,
I think if it's a good,
Well, there's not gonna be any
Good
more than
price.
available.
It'll make
yeah,
it
I mean,
Well,
Great piece of property.
there's not an immediate use for it, but I don't want to be 5, 10 years down and say, well, if we'd have bought it when we had the opportunity, we sure could have used it.
I also understand, I believe that when we talked about it, that there's a, there's going to be a requirement for retention if we even do anything on the current property that we have, and we don't have space for retention. So therefore, this provides that space for retention.
Yeah, that's why I said the Coliseum as it sits handicapped as far as anything else being done on it.
Yeah, we're pretty well finished at the Coliseum unless we get this property for expansion.
I'm good with it, Mr. Chairman. I move we move forward.
Got a motion by Commissioner Richardson
I second it.
to purchase it. Got a second by Commissioner Sessions. Any further discussion?
Just that, Mr. Jackson suggested the airport Hilton be constructed there.
Yeah, you see it when they come in. Yeah.
That's right.
Got a motion to approve by Commissioner Richardson, a second by Commissioner Sessions. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, same sign. All right, moving on to the next additional agenda item, approval of stipulation parties agreement between Suwannee County Board of County Commissioners, Florida Department of Transportation, CSX, for relocation of railroad crossing at the Catalyst site.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, as you know, I started this back when I had hair. This has been a long time coming, and we're not finished yet. I mean, there will be a whole lot more with CSX, I'm sure, but at least we now have an agreement. I've met and spoken with DOT and CSX about moving this rail crossing, which is necessary because that new rail spur that we're building requires closing the old primitive crossing that's right there in the immediate area where you come onto the south end of our Catalyst site off of US 90. The new crossing is proposed to be roughly a quarter of a mile west of the existing crossing. In this stipulated party agreement, when all the parties have signed, it requires that within 30 days, CSX is going to come out and remove that old primitive crossing. So it's going to be imperative that the new one go in. This is the same crossing that on several occasions I've commented that CDBG, the grant administrators, and the office of the DEO office in Tallahassee has agreed to allow us to use the balance of the grant funds from the CDBG, which we will have left over in the construction of the rail spur. They're going to let us use that to pay the cost of moving this crossing. Now, my hope is it doesn't exceed $1 million. When we had obtained some estimates previously from CSX, in fact, I think Mr. Pittman and I had the discussion with the gentleman from CSX at the time. It was around $800,000. So we should have around $1 million left over in CDBG to take care of this. And then we'll need to construct the road from US 90 north over this new crossing all the way up to 50th and turn it back toward Klossner and come up to their western property line. Now, that part wasn't originally contemplated, that little connection to their western property line, but it became a condition of the agreement to allow us to use this, the CDBG funds, that little piece be added in up there. So I'm pretty encouraged at this point. The difficulty, which we've experienced most recently, is the turnover at CSX. We have a signature on this agreement from an engineer with CSX. DOT is prepared to sign it. And like I said, there are lots of other agreements very likely that we'll receive from CSX before this is all finished. But I'm encouraged that it's moving in the right direction now. So I'd ask that the board approve this agreement.
Any questions for Mr. Harrison? I just have one. Did I hear you right? You said they're going to tear out the existing crossing within 30 days of signing this?
Correct.
30 days.
How long will it take to put in the new one?
A little longer than 30 days.
It'll take more than 30 days.
Or I'm assuming part of that tear out is to make it easier going through with the construction of the spur that's coming through there, or?
Well, yeah, it was going to have to be torn out regardless
Yeah.
because of the new spur. So that was previously contemplated. We just didn't have a timeline for that.
All right, just need some direction from the board. I'll have a motion.
Yeah, I make motion.
Got a motion to approve it by Commissioner Hale, second by Commissioner Fleming. Any further discussion? Any more questions? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. All right. This time we'll move on to item 28, public concerns and comment. Anyone wishing to speak, they would just make their way to the podium. Name, address, social security number, date of birth.
Purpose for being here.
Here, no.
Oh, he's coming.
Oh, I'm sorry.
He has to rock a little bit to get out of the
You
chair.
about hesitated just long enough.
Well, I didn't know it would come up now or wait till you get to it, but item number 31, informational item,
Uh-huh.
that's 98,000
plus dollars. Where'd it go? I mean, you're removing these items from the courthouse inventory.
I didn't understand. What was your question?
It's agenda item 31, informational
It's the
items.
informational items on item 31.
I don't know whether to do it now or wait.
Oh,
Well, good enough
It
time as
involves
any.
the removing items from the inventory that do not exist.
Did they ever exist?
difficult to say. Listen,
Wait a minute.
that's a
Where's
great
the auditor?
question. It's a great question, but let me share something with you. I'm glad you asked the question. For a number of years, we've been working on trying, the administration office has been working on trying to clean up old inventory lists that were never tended to, okay? We send out to all of the county departments, and I imagine the constitutional officers, when elections come about, they inherit old lists of inventory that no one has tended to for years. So it isn't uncommon for any department or an agency, a constitutional officer, to go through with their staff and realize that lots of items that are on these old inventory lists simply don't exist any longer. So what everyone's been trying to do for a number of years is just clean those things up and take the items that they know do not exist. There's no telling what happened to them. Someone may have thrown these things in a dumpster years ago. And quite frankly, there were some items that were purchased by the road department years ago, long before I got here, that had been used up by the water management district, and someone decided that it would be a good idea to buy that garbage, 3 or 4 pallets of it, and they parked it in some old containers over there, and it was just sitting there way outdated and obsolete. And we had to deal with some of that a few years back, getting rid of it. But this is just a process that all governments struggle with, because faces come and faces go in constitutional offices and government agencies, and someone gets stuck trying to clean this mess up.
I don't know how far some of this stuff goes back, but you're looking at televisions,
Considering the price of
Computers.
the LCD televisions, if that's what they paid for them, it's at least 10 years.
I can
Minimum.
Well-
answer where they were, but I don't know where they are now. But these were the ones that were originally put on the upstairs, when they redid the courtroom, and that's been 15 years ago. I mean, when these first, and they're 42-inch ones, and those were mammoth, things back then. And when they redid everything, to the LCD monitors on the downstairs, that's been at least 10 years ago.
Yeah, but as a taxpayer, if it's, I know it's over a period of years, here's $100,000 that has been lost. Nobody knows what happened to it. It never, that I could recall, probably never was surplus. Did somebody take it home? I mean, I don't know.
Listen, I'm going to tell you this is a theory, and I wasn't here when a lot of this stuff occurred. My theory is that because in many cases, some people were not familiar with the process for liquidating these things. You've seen us come in here many times with surplus list, and we go to auction. In fact, I'm going to speak about that.
I was going to speak on it as well.
But we take items to auction. But I'll pick on the Public Works Department for a moment. When I got here years ago and did my grand tour of all of our facilities all over the county, I came across trucks that had trees growing up through them. Literally, garbage trucks that had trees growing up between the back of the cab and the packing portion of the garbage trucks. Old excavators been laying around just for 25 years, out of service, with trees all grown up around them. Just junkyards all over the place. Well, clearly, those were items that should have been surplus 20 years earlier. And they were sitting around because either no one wanted to take the time to create a list, bring it to the board and get it surplused and try to auction it off, or they just didn't know what to do with it. I would venture the same has been true with constitutional officers, coming and going, and personnel that just didn't know. I would commend the court system for bringing a list forward and saying, hey, we know that this is old inventory. Now, this isn't accompanied with a request for surplusing and auctioning off. But I know that there are lots of items that on inventory lists that we've gone through where we simply absolutely can't find the items on the list. So I think people threw them away. They didn't know. They had an old computer. It was worn out. They had an original value on a list. They can't find the thing. It appears that it's 12 or 15 years old. It probably got thrown away. That's probably what happened to it.
It's kind of disturbing to me to hear that the county doesn't know what the heck it's got. But yet y'all sit up here and you approved thousands of dollars of taxpayer money, and you're now telling me you don't know where it's going. You're going to buy something.
A television
If you
was thrown
don't
away
change-
15 years ago, I don't know where it went.
Well, that's fine.
Nobody sitting up here or out there does
You
either.
still do not have a policy in place.
We do have a policy
Well, the
in
policy's
place.
been in
The
place.
policy's in place.
Yeah, the policy's been in place, and I can tell you this.
You have to surplus it, and the board has to be the one to surplus it, and then it
Who's
has to-
enforcing it?
We enforce it every board meeting when we surplus something.
Yeah, but how about the stuff that's sitting out there? What if another department comes up and says, we don't know where this stuff is? Your policy's already in place. Now, I'm not trying to say, get somebody fired or something over this, but I am concerned that you end up with $100,000 here. How much more is still out there that we don't know about today?
I don't have
Nobody
any
knows.
I think it's going to be all dependent upon,
And the majority of this, or every bit of it, comes out of the court facilities. So, I mean, obviously, it's not coming out of the departments that the board oversees on a day-to-day basis.
Granted, but it's still taxpayer dollars, whether it comes from the court system.
Oh, I'm not disagreeing with you there. You're
I'm talking about as a taxpayer, but, we've had the issue with the county. Mr. Harris has talked about this before, where there's stuff that's on an inventory list, nobody knows where it is. You go start going through some of the storage that we have, and they may find some of this stuff, not this stuff, but, find something else that just got stuck in storage when it should have been declared surplus years ago or something.
Yeah, I can tell you another issue that I know is a problem there, because we've talked about it recently. And I'll just tell you, our process is when we get items in, we make a purchase. We put a number on it, an inventory number, and we keep track of it. It goes on a list, and we keep track of those. And I'm not pointing fingers at all the people that were here and handle things maybe improperly. I can't even speak to that, so I'm not making any accusations. But I know that there is an issue that has occurred in the past where one agency uses an item for an extended period of time and decides that they don't have a use for it any longer, and they offer it
Another agency.
to another agency. Well, if no one removes it from this agency's inventory list, when it gets transferred over to someone else, it keeps an old number on it, it's floating around out there somewhere, and then years later, no one can tell you where it is. So those are, that's just another example of something that I know that has occurred. I can tell you when the old school next door was torn down, Eddie Baisden, every constitutional officer can tell you, there were mountains of garbage in there. And quite frankly, any number of items could have been, you could have taken this list and maybe found something that looked like that in there that was flat, worn out, broken, obsolete, couldn't get parts for it anymore. I saw literal mounds of equipment, old mounds of equipment piled in that old school, and the constitutional officers all had rooms in there, and that stuff was just, it was stuff that should have been thrown away a long time ago. The only difference is it should have been a list put together before it was thrown away, because that stuff had no value at all. But I commend the court for coming up with lists saying, hey, this is surplus, or it isn't here, we can't find it, it isn't on an inventory, we can't find it on an inventory list. But everyone suffers this issue. It isn't just one agency, it's all of us. And I know that we're working at trying to correct the problems of the past, but it's those issues of the past that we're dealing with.
Well, is there, in the new policy, is there a way to track it, in an interagency? Glenda has something that's surplus that the tax collector could use, so it walks across the street.
Well,
But
yeah,
what's the procedure now for transferring that? Is it written?
simple communication. No, it's something that it should have been occurring all along. This isn't a need for some new policy or procedure.
No, if
No, is in the current procedure. You said you have a new policy.
Yeah, we have a procedure.
How do you handle interagency
We
transfers?
communicate with the other agencies, and we make sure that those inventory numbers are tracked from agency to agency. In fact, we just, an example, we just had a car that was at the extension office. They didn't need it anymore. We had one over at Public Works that was running that we didn't need. They took the other one was broken down. They had been sitting there for a long time. We took the broken down one and gave them one that ran, and we had to track that with paper. That's an example, and I'm sure that happens all over the place, those types of things. But we're tracking it. I can't speak to those, in prior years and how they handled or didn't handle it, but I think everyone's trying to get on top of it.
Man, I saw that and I was kind of concerned because there is no age or anything on these. And I knew that we had a policy because of the previous issues, but evidently something wasn't working. But if these are that old, but it is concerning. Here's $100,000. Nobody knows what the heck happened to it. We had something, now we don't.
Well, I promise you, it's very likely worn out.
That was what I was gonna say. When I see an AC wall unit, Mr. Bowe, I just figured that thing probably quit working and they tossed it somewhere.
Now you make me feel old. I used to work on them
I know, but I'm just,
many years ago. But, okay, thank you.
thank you.
Yeah. And I wish they'd have included more information. I mean, if they knew that they had a window unit or a list of it, they probably knew a date and a time when they had it. But I mean, they put a list together for us. We have it to look at tonight. It's just informational items. They were cleaning up their books, and I'm sure some of this stuff dates back 15, probably 20 years. And as far as I know, there's not an elected official up there at the courthouse or in the.
I see a fax machine for $591. You can buy them off eBay for $40,
Yeah. That was there probably when most of this went missing, so.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I just simply add that I think in the future, if we start seeing inventory numbers show up beside these things, it means we're into a policy that's already got inventory numbers. Then we can start wondering what happened to them, because our policy is to track all this stuff. So these are probably pre-inventory numbered. So they're not even, they're just on a list, that's all. Can't even hack any of it.
No, I appreciate it.
No, but I mean, I look at a $10,000 security system, a $20,000 security system. It's hard to believe that somebody just picked it up and walked out the door with a
Well, some
building security
companies
system.
replace them, they're given authorization to take them.
Yeah, I'm just saying it just didn't come off somebody's inventory list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
That's $30,000 of the $90,000 that you're talking about right there, just those two items that I'm sure were $30,000 to install, but weren't $30,000 value when they uninstalled them and put a new one in there. Anyone else wishing to beat us to death over a 15-year-old? No. Moving on down to 29, administrator comments and information.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I just wanted to comment on the $25 million FRS pension liability.
Yes, sir.
I meant to say that this while Mr. Powell was here, because he would concur. He's been around long enough. That number is a number that is assigned by the state. And back in the mid-'90s, it was just all over the charts because the legislature, especially in election years, depending on who was running for particular office that had any control over that number, they'd change that number and they would reduce the contributions necessary from the counties, and the next year they'd go back up, and it was just all over the charts. It's been more stable probably in the last 10 years than it's ever been. But that is a number that wasn't necessarily created by the county. It's created by the legislature. And fortunately, all of those retirements are not occurring where, at the same time, where it's really causing a big burden for any of the counties in the state. But it is our proportionate share. The other thing I wanted to mention was that, and the chairman is familiar with this, we had the auction of surplus equipment a week ago, I think it was, on a weekend, and we did extremely well. I think we generated, was it 148,000?
Yeah, I think it grossed 160 something, and then we netted 148.
Yeah, we did extremely well. And I was actually going to talk about the trees growing up through the trucks when we got to this point, but literally, years ago, we had at least 3 junkyards that I'm familiar with at various county property locations. One was behind the Public Works building. That entire property back there was filled with old rusting down equipment, trucks and all kinds of heavy equipment that just didn't even run anymore. There was another large pile of it at the landfill, and when you went down to the mine in Branford, there was a huge pile of it down there, just trucks with trees growing all up around them. You could tell they hadn't been moved in 20 years or more.
Not only that, a lot of them were still on our insurance policy.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So this was a problem that no one was tending to, and the board back about 6 years ago agreed to let us
5.5 years ago, something like that.
have that first auction. And I think we generated a little over $60,000 that first year. And we've had auctions whenever we could put enough equipment, old used equipment together. And I'll just remind you that, you know, particularly in the case of pickup trucks, most of our pickup trucks were just running employees, you know, around to get out to graders and other things. We purchased used from a large percentage of them came from Sarasota County, where they already had over 100 or 200,000 miles on them, and we try to get another 200,000 miles on them, and then we take them to auction, and people actually buy those things. It's amazing. I don't know if they're using them for paperweights or what they're doing with them, but we do sell them. But we've generated quite a bit of money over the years just taking this old worn-out stuff and selling it rather than parking it and letting the trees grow up around it.
I went and watched the auction and watched them bid on some of the stuff that you couldn't have gave me, and I was just shaking my head.
Yeah, I know. It's
That
pretty amazing.
old Parks and Rec diesel that you sent up there that had water in the oil, I mean, they were fighting over it. I had like $5,300 or $5,500. And the man was up front with them, told him right off the bat, hey, it's got water in the oil. Negative Ghost Rider. But them old, I don't know if y'all seen those old garbage trucks that were falling apart. They bought, I think, what, 22,000 a piece.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to tell you, we learned a number of years ago that they'll take these garbage trucks. Now, this particular company that bought those plans to refurbish them and use those for loaner trucks because they're actually in the lease business. Mm-hmm. They wanted to buy those from us, and I told them that you have to go to the auction. Well, they ended up buying them. But they're in the lease business, so if we were to end up leasing a truck from them and it broke down, they'd bring us another truck. And hopefully it'll look a whole lot better
I hope it looked a lot better than what it was when we sent it out.
after they've refurbed it. But there's a demand for that stuff. We've had equipment that we were told at the end of these auctions, some of this stuff was being packed up and shipped overseas because they'll take all this stuff.
Yeah. But that and the zero-turn mowers that weren't running were going for $800 to $1,500. It meant they were getting some crazy money.
Yeah.
But they did a good job out there. You have anything else, Mr. Harris?
No, sir.
Board members, requests, inquiries, or comments? Start with you, Mr. Hill.
No, I don't really have anything. I will mention that we had a funeral today for my Uncle John Hill, and I do appreciate the community and a lot of the department heads and the sheriff and many others I've seen there. I just appreciate everybody coming out and paying their respects.
Yeah, we were sorry to hear of your family's loss.
Yeah, means a lot.
Mr. Sessions?
Just want to introduce somebody here tonight that's representing Catherine. Dee Broughton's one of our newest ag extension agents here in the county. She's made a big impact.
Did you tell her about the 15-minute speech she has to come?
No.
Give us tonight?
You got to approach the
I've
podium.
got her down after we finished the board
You can
member
do it.
request. She works for Catherine, I'm sure she can. Mr. Richardson, you got anything? Mr. Fleming? Starting to see your lights go up out there, it's gonna look good. Yes, sir. There you go. I don't have any,
Mr. Chairman, can I interrupt for one
yep,
second?
yes, sir.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I want to say something. I'm aware that another governmental unit, someone with a local governmental unit made the comment that, or was trying to take credit
I know what you're talking
that they didn't deserve for pushing hard to get those lights put up out there. And I'm going to tell you, it was, I don't think any of you were on the board at the time, but Commissioner Fleming was here, and it was one of the very first things that Commissioner Fleming contacted me about. And we contacted DOT, we even met out there on the side of the road and had lengthy conversations about getting those lights put up for pedestrians and for drivers too, because it's so dark out there. So it was actually Commissioner Fleming, and I want to commend him. You know, he told me then, he drives back and forth to work through there, and it's dark, and you can't see people crossing the road on foot or on bicycles, and they can't see trying to get where they're going, and it's always been dangerous out there. But I want to compliment Commissioner Fleming for working hard and working with DOT and pushing and being relentless in trying to get those lights put up out there. At one time, we actually obtained some quotes from Florida Power, had them put a plan together to put those lights out there for the board to try to come up with the funding to pay for that. But I'm thankful that DOT came forward and that, you know, it's really the result of Commissioner Fleming pushing hard and persevering, and we're going to have a nice lit-up corridor out there, and it'll be a lot safer for everyone.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I said I didn't have anything, but as you got talking, I remember one thing. They had the Blueberry Festival this past weekend, and I've seen a lot of y'all out there, and I'll tell you what, it was, they did a good job this year. It was slam full of people. So I don't know if anyone here was part of the group that was putting it on, but just hats off to y'all. Did an excellent job this year. Other than that, I don't have anything. Just need a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Motion adjourned.